You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Matt Holloway. Today, we're going to do things a little differently on the HoloNet Podcast. Third-party problems, and we're going to address the news once again like we did, just one short month ago. Today was a very news-filled day. There's a lot to review. The Democratic National Committee has now created the Commission on Protecting American Democracy from the Trump administration. So now we have a committee to protect America from our president. We're also going to discuss the recent attacks on social media against Senator John McCain. We're going to review why Matt Walsh thinks the Republican Party is doomed. All that and more here on the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by.
My fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
All right, we're here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're going to do things a little bit different. Decided we need to take a quick break from our podcast miniseries, Third Party Problems. We've already explored the Federalist Party and the Libertarian Party, and next we're going to explore the Constitutional Party. But today, I figure, with so much going on in the world, we need to shoot from the hip.
What I do it real, shooting from the hip. Yeah, boy, shoot to kill. Half a breath left on my deathbed, screaming F that, yeah, super ill.
And that's about the extent of the rap that I actually know of or follow. So, shooting from the hip. Gotta shoot from the hip today a little bit. I used to listen to Buck Sexton. He used to do Freestyle Fridays, freestyling and Buck Wildin'. So big shout out to Buck. He had me call into his show a couple of times. He's an awesome guy. Don't get to listen to him much anymore because he's doing primetime hours and, well, I have kids. But the reason why I wanted to just kind of shoot from the hip today is I did a quick little listen to some of my earlier shows, and I discovered something was missing. Something has gone awry with the HoloNet podcast. Yes, it has. I'm a big enough guy to grip the mirror and to be critical of myself and admit that. And you know what's missing? The one thing that's missing is the spontaneity. That's right. It is the spontaneity of an unscripted show. Now, when I say script, I use the term script very loosely. I usually hit bullet points on my show, and I usually do show prep for about a week beforehand, figure out what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a theme. But today I said, man, we got to shoot from the hip. We've got to shoot from the hip. Got to get back that excitement, that feeling that you don't know quite what's coming next, because I don't either. It's going to be a good time. What we're going to start with, what we're going to begin with today, is something very close to my heart. Now, Senator John McCain recently announced his diagnosis with a glioblastoma, which is brain cancer. And I want to start today's show with a heartfelt prayer for Senator McCain's recovery and for support to him and his family as they go through this absolutely horrific experience and incredibly difficult time in their lives. Cancer is no joke. I've had cancer claim my grandfather and nearly claimed my pops, my stepdad. And he was able to fight it off and live to fight another day. And I hope and pray that Senator McCain, with all the ferocity that he's brought to the Senate floor, that he brought to debates in years past when he was running for president, he's able to bring that same ferocity to bear against the big C word. And I also want to take an opportunity today, and I'm not going to make anybody famous by pointing them out because they don't deserve it, but I want to take an opportunity to admonish the people, even amongst my own party, who have taken this as an opportunity to kick a man while he's down. If you can possibly avoid the comments section on social media that's attached to any of these stories pertaining to Senator McCain, I recommend that you do so. It's an occupational hazard of doing what I do and what people like me do, is that we have to look into these things. And I was disgusted. My soul hurts looking at these comments and looking at the horrible, cruel, despicable things that people who are ostensibly conservatives, never mind, people on the other side of the aisle, they're doing it too, but the fringe elements of both sides are taking this opportunity to speak ill of a man who right now is in one of the darkest positions that any of us may ever find ourselves. I mean, bend your knees and bow your head and pray that karma is kind to you. Because I could never imagine anything quite so low as giving cruel invectives to a person who is seriously eyeballing potentially meeting their maker. So think on that before you jump on the social media bandwagon about Senator John McCain. Shame. Shame on the people who are taking this as an opportunity to throw a philosophical bomb, to be an anarchic bomb thrower. Senator John McCain and I disagree on a lot of things, I believe. I've never met the man. I've never had the privilege of shaking the hand of someone who so diligently and so fervently served our nation. I've never had that opportunity yet. I hope to someday. Because while I would find him my opposite on many views, he would be a fearsome opponent. And I respect my political opponents. Because at the end of the day, politics aside, we are all human beings, and we are all deserving of that basic dignity. It's the very definition of what the HoloNet stands for, and of what Lanterns Media Network has always stood for. That it is not just all right to have differences of opinion, that it's not just acceptable, it is necessary, it is critical to the long-term health and survival of our nation, of our republic. That we not only have differences of opinion, but that we value those differences. And so to take this time that calls for unity and prayer and support. And you know, if you're not religious, it calls for you to send good vibes or good energy out into the universe. This time that calls for us to unite behind one of our most venerated representatives. And people have chosen instead to say things like, oh good, karma, spare me, have you no humanity? And that cuts across the aisle, both sides, left and right. If you're taking this opportunity to kick a man while he's down, I have no respect for you. And karma's rough. So again, I'm not going to take this opportunity to call out anybody in particular, make anybody famous, as you don't feed the trolls. You show them the truth. And you let the truth care for itself. No, today instead, bow your head and give a moment of thought, a moment of prayer to Senator John McCain, who by all accounts was rightly called the Maverick. Because you never quite know what he's going to do. But you know he does it with his heart in his hand and love of this nation in his heart. I don't agree with him, but I respect him. And I respect his humanity in this hour of need. So God be with Senator McCain and be with the whole McCain family tonight. God give him healing and give his family peace. I'll get off my high horse after this short break. Now we're going to talk about the Democratic National Committee's answer to the Election Integrity Commission of the Trump administration. Now they're protecting American democracy from the Trump administration. Yes, we now have an official committee, a commission, to protect the American people from the very president whom we elected. That when we come back from this quick break. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
America molested by Ronald McDonald. It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and ends with a dollar. Makes me wanna get up and to holler. Hey, what has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. We gotta take back America. 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America or we're all screwed.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HoloNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to theholonet.com or holonet.lanterns.buzz.
Trouble. Hey, what has it happened to you? Because it's happening all around and no one's making a sound. No one's making a sound. No one's making a
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Here at the Lanterns Media Network, we're going to shine a light on the truth and hold that lantern up high. You see, here on Lanterns, we're not afraid of differences of opinion. We're not afraid of people who are more libertarian, people who are more conventional Republican, people who are constitutional, people who are fans of Article 5, people who aren't. Everybody gets a home here who loves this nation and who loves American values. And the conservative banner is wide. It is. You have people who are just fiscally conservative, people who are socially conservative, people who are both. People who are so libertarian that they're like Penn Jillette. And they want as little law as humanly possible. And that's okay. You have a seat at the table. You have a place where you can join the conversation and join the fight to restore this nation. Chris Pilier, host of the Battlefield Live and also head honcho here at Lanterns Media Network, he always likes to talk about how America was once a nation that was virtuous and vibrant. And he talks about what happened to it in his book, Deus Ex Machina. By the way, that's available on lulu.com if you want to check that out. That's Deus Ex Machina. Free plug for the boss. But he talks about that, and he's right. And what happened to our country that made it change? The concept of progressive socialism has crept into the nation via the Democratic Party. And now we see more evidence of that than ever today. Because for the first time in my life, there is now an official commission which has been set up by one of the two major political parties, the Democratic National Committee in this case, called the Commission on Protecting American Democracy from the Trump Administration. We go to thenation.com. To counteract the Trump administration's Election Integrity Commission, the Democratic National Committee is launching a new commission on protecting American democracy from the Trump administration. While the Trump Commission plans to focus on so-called, quote, fraudulent voting, the DNC says its commission will debunk the myth that voter fraud is widespread, document the impact of voter suppression efforts in the 2016, and propose solutions to expand voting rights. Trump's commission is part of the continuing dissemination of alternative facts, DNC Chair Tom Perez says. The commission itself is fraudulent in the sense that voter fraud is a virtually non-existent phenomena in this country. Perez calls it nothing but a sham to justify the GOP's suppression efforts across the country. Our commission will be ready to counter every move that the Trump administration makes to silence eligible voters. We simply cannot trust Trump, Jeff Sessions, or anyone in this administration to protect the integrity of our democracy. So, what Tom Perez seems to be saying here is that President Trump's administration is a threat to the American people and to the American system. Gee, that sounds an awful lot like a group that wants to unseat the rightfully elected President of the United States and is preparing to do so by, quote, let me see. Quote, they describe the commission itself as fraudulent in the sense that voter fraud is virtually non-existent and is nothing but a sham to justify the GOP's voter suppression efforts across the country. All right, here we go. And says it will debunk the myth that voter fraud is widespread and document the impact of voter suppression efforts in the 2016 election. So what voter suppression efforts is Perez referring to here? Is he referring to how several states wanted to get, I don't know, voter ID laws put in? So that way we can actually have the same burden of identification proof required to pick up a pack of cigarettes in order to elect the leader of the free world? I moved to Arizona in the year 2006. And at that time I was a smoker. I used to smoke Marlboro Menthol 100s. I used to call them Minty Cowboy Killers. Yes, I was not really smart back then. I smoked a pack a day back in those days. Quit about 10 years ago. What astonished me is when I moved to Arizona, I could buy a pack of cigarettes anywhere. I had to show my license because I was a baby-faced little sucker. But at 20 years old, I could not buy a Mega Millions or a Powerball to save my soul in Arizona. Why? Arizona law says you have to be 21 in order to play the lottery. This wasn't the case in New Jersey, so it came as a bit of a shock to me. Now, I'm not a huge gambler, but I like to pick up my lotto tickets every couple of weeks. Just maybe I'm feeling lucky. Who knows? Maybe I'll start doing the show daily because I won. But it came to me as quite a shock that I had to show ID to get a lottery ticket. So let's put this into perspective, okay? In Arizona, I have to show my driver's license if I'm 20 years old in order to blow $3 on a lottery ticket. But not to elect the president and vice president of the United States or the Congress or our governor. I don't have to show any form of ID in order to do that. That is the definition of insanity. And newsflash, the burden to identify oneself is common in electoral law around the world. You really think a Mexican national is going to vote for president without an ID? I don't think so. Ain't going to happen. And our progressive Democrat friends so frequently like to point out how the United States should toe the line and should synchronize with international law. Well, here's a nice glaring example of where you are abjectly refusing to do that in the form of Mr. Perez's accusation of voter suppression efforts. Now, if you want to get nice and specific, if you want to call out gerrymandering, I can get on board with that. I think gerrymandering is bull. I almost cussed. Almost did it. Yeah, Dylan would have been mad at me. I think gerrymandering it's bollocks. It's terrible. It is cheating the system. I think we should work based off of simple geographic divisions. and let the chips fall where they may. So if you want to go in and say gerrymandering is voter suppression, I can get on board with that. I can buy it. I can even agree with you a little bit on that. I think it is gaming the election. But voter ID? I don't think so. And it is just sad that this is the best that you can come up with. The very best. What the President's Commission is seeking to put a stop to are a couple of major things, based on the information that I've read. They're trying to prevent foreign nationals from voting in an American election, and they're trying to prevent fraudulent voting from dead people. Dead people. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get a dead loved one off of the voting rolls in a blue state? There's an old joke. You see somebody with a clipboard walking around the cemetery. That's voter registration in Chicago. There's a reason that's funny, because it's kind of true. And to sit here with a straight face and form a commission within a major political party with the singular goal of protecting the nation from the president and his administration, I think that might push the envelope a little too far away from the concept of loyal opposition. And I don't mean loyal to the president. I mean loyal to the nation and to the nation's values and to the people and to the choice they made. You may not agree with it, but that is the choice that the American people made in November of 2016. This is the government that we have elected, and we demand loyal opposition. Full disclosure, I do not feel that the Republican Party, the GOP, met the standard of loyal opposition during the tenure of President Barack Obama. I don't feel they did. But it is something that we need to restore in this country, is the concept of a loyal, respectful opposition. Not a party that takes the vastly irresponsible move, the brinksmanship move, of creating a commission purely designed to oppose the current administration and attempt to delegitimize a rightful legal election. You have to ask yourself this. What is President Trump's intent with the committee? Because if the committee came back that there was massive voter suppression in 2016, if the investigation came back that was a thing, that would delegitimize his own election win. It would. If there was absolutely no indication of illegal voting, it would delegitimize a lot of what he ran on, a lot of what he said. So that's a lot of skin in the game. That's a lot of risk. So why would he take it if he didn't believe there was a problem? And why now is the DNC seemingly obsessed with fighting this effort? Take a little break, and when we come back, a recent editorial in The Blaze by Matt Walsh, one of my very favorite authors and contributors on The Blaze, says there is no Republican Party. Now, I recommend you listen to the podcast on theblaze.com. It's on SoundCloud. But I'm going to just give you the couple of highlights that Matt Walsh gives on The Blaze. And I think it's something worth talking about, and I think it's something that is in line with the Third Party Problems podcast series that we've launched here on the HoloNet. That there is an impending breach of the parties coming. When we come back to that here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway. Hey, I'm going to talk about that Matt Walsh article real quick here, but first I wanted to make a sad note here. That according to Fox News, it has been confirmed that Arizona native and lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, has died at age 41 of an apparent suicide. Very, very sad to hear this. The suicide of Chester Bennington came as a bit of a shock, and band co-founder and producer Mike Shinoda said on Twitter he was shocked and saddened. And I grew up in high school listening to Linkin Park. I mean, I was coming of age right when they were really hitting their stride with the hits like Faint, In the End, and Crawling. I remember jamming out to Crawling like freshman year, and it really spoke to me. And they really managed to age well from my perspective and from the perspective of many millennials, because as we grew older, the music seemed to grow with us. And they managed to get past being, that angsty teen, metal, punk, rock, fusion, and really got into an awesome stride. And it's just very, very sad. So I wanted to take a moment to think about Chester Bennington and the family that he leaves behind, and in Arizona that is today very saddened to hear of the loss of one of our favored sons. So that's a very, very sad piece of news. But moving on from that to kind of a more curious story, Matt Walsh, one of the more prominent contributors to The Blaze, put out a podcast today, 35-minute podcast, that there is no Republican Party. On The Blaze in the preview, he says, "My podcast today focuses on the death of the Republican Party, a death which occurred a while ago. What exists today is a rotting, ineffectual corpse. We have given this corpse control of the government, and it hasn't done anything with it or advanced any conservative policies because it's not conservative. It's not anything really. It's an empty shell filled with empty men. There are many betrayals and failures I could highlight, healthcare being a big one, but here I concentrate on what is to me the most egregious. We are 6 months in a Republican-controlled Congress and White House, yet still Planned Parenthood is being funded." And Matt's got a good point. He usually brings fairly salient points, but I think I had a small breakdown the other day. And I think I'm being nice to myself there. I was a little PO'd. So I recorded a very brief spot, about 5-minute rant, pertaining to the betrayal that I feel by the Republican Party.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Senators, members of Congress, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. President, you had one damn job. Seriously, you had one motherfucking job. If you'd have just done this one fucking thing, if you would just repeal Obamacare the way you promised, You would have absolutely no problem. You could hang your hat on that one friggin' achievement just the way President Barack Obama did in his first term. You had one damn job, and you couldn't do it. You were elected for one purpose and one purpose only. And you better believe, trust and believe, that come November, and it's coming, come November of 2018 and November of 2020, these two shall come home to roost. You have failed in your singular charge, in the simple set of marching orders you were given by your constituents. You had but one job, and that was to free the American people. Free us from an onerous, ill-intended, dubiously structured, sad attempt at healthcare reform. We didn't ask for you to replace it with one of your liking. We didn't ask for you to become architects of the future of American medical practice. You had but a simple task, a small role. Vote yes on a pure repeal and wash it away. And your legacy would have been etched in stone. Your re-election assured. The goodwill of the American people behind you. But now, here we sit. 5 months after inauguration, with nothing to show. No repeal of Obamacare. No tax reform. We have a new Supreme Court justice. Yes, I will give you that. For all of the hand-wringing and teeth-pulling you had to do to get Judge Neil Gorsuch on the bench. But you have failed in the most basic duty that you were elected to complete. You had one damn job. Yeah, I was a little heated. But I was thinking pretty hard about this. Why is my generation so very angry all the time? And it comes on both sides. It comes on the conservative side and also on the liberal side. Why are millennials so very mad about everything? I was breaking this down in a conversation with my wife the other day, and I think a big part of it, a very large part of it, is that we came into adulthood with such very high expectations of what the world would look like, of what we could accomplish. And like every generation before us, we encountered the reality of the world. But unlike the generations that came before us, we were woefully and completely unprepared for it. When you're told every day how special you are, and how there are no winners and there are no losers, when you're told that you deserve everything, when from one generation to the next, we have, the greatest generation who wanted to do better for their children, so they worked as hard as they could, and they tried to make a better life for their children. And then the generation subsequent didn't really feel that there was enough given. So they decided they would make things even easier on their children, and that competition was a bad thing. So they tried to create a competitionless world for children. They created the bell curve and grading. Dumbed down the tests. Made everybody feel like they were automatically a winner just for playing. Yeah, I'm getting to the participation trophies here. When that happens, and then the cold water of a harsh world is splashed in your face, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you get mad about it. Here's why I'm mad, and here's why many conservatives my age are mad. We feel we did everything right. We supported the Republican Party. We got congressional majorities in both houses. More states are run by the Republican Party now than in the last century. We won the Donald Trump election, the Trump presidency, by a narrow margin. We snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. We banded together despite our differences, despite not potentially wanting the candidate that we wound up with, but we banded together nonetheless. And we put them in the White House. And we put our representatives on the Hill. And we said, yes, finally. Finally, after 8 years of the Obama administration tearing down what our parents and our grandparents built in this nation. Yes, now there's a chance. Now things are going to get better. You know, I imagine this is just a touch of what the far left liberals felt like about 6 years ago, about 2 years into the Obama administration. When hope and change became business as usual. Well, now we're kind of seeing Make America Great Again be brought down to the sludge and the muck and the grime in the Washington swamp. Proving indefatigably that you cannot beat City Hall. That even President Trump, who was going to go in and wreck things, he was going to take a wrecking ball to the whole thing. He was going to beat the system. He was going to break it if it didn't work and build it anew. And he too, even he, has been made to bend the knee and to kowtow in the dismal failures of healthcare reform, of the Obamacare repeal, which, by the way, is coming up now next week, according to Mitch McConnell. Oh yeah, we're going to repeal Obamacare. You know what? I will jump on my podcast next week, and I will eat crow. And I will sing the praises of Mitch McConnell if he actually lands the big one. Because we were promised many things to make America great again. We were promised a full Obamacare repeal. We were promised tax reform. We were promised an elimination of all job-killing regulation and a rebound of the economy. And you know what? Premiums are still up. Insurance is still difficult to acquire. It is still murder to get a decent job. So I really must say, the Trump administration has thus far not managed to make America great again. At this point, we haven't even made America mediocre again. At this point, Hillary Clinton might as well have won, because the party has chosen not to act. What are they waiting for? What are they afraid of? You own the House and the Senate. We have Neil Gorsuch sitting on the Supreme Court, who would doubtlessly rule in favor of constitutional measures. We have more state capitals under the GOP than ever before. So, one must ask, what are they waiting for? What more does the GOP need? What more grist does the mill require? What more must be put under the grindstone? in order to finally get what we're looking for. That's why I'm angry. That's why this millennial is angry. The GOP wrote a big check in November of 2016. And it seems to be bouncing. But this time, I don't think anybody's going to let it slide. When we come back, we're going to do a bit of a wrap-up, and we're going to discuss a couple of more side note-worthy news events of the week. We're also going to prep for next week when we explore the Constitutional Party in Part 3 of Third Party Problems. If you want to follow the show, you can follow us on Twitter, at Matt D. Holloway, at The HollowNet. Facebook, facebook.com/HollowNet. Lanterns, it's going to be HollowNet.lanterns.buzz. And, of course, thehollownet.com. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. And I decided I wanted to end the show this week on a little bit of a lighter note. So, of course, I hop on the Twitters. Got to get on the Twitters. And what's trending today but hashtag new Dem slogans. Which is, it's a crazy world when conservatives are having more fun on Twitter than liberals. So, I just want to put this one out. Defiant Dave, at Dave in Defiance. Hashtag new Dem slogans. Socialism will work this time. We promise. Momo at Mallratty. Coexist with everyone but babies and old people and the right. Hashtag new Dem slogans. Lizzie Luhu at _WinterGirl93. New Dem slogans. Everyone else is Hitler. This is a beautiful one. Federalist Musket at Patriot _Musket. Sign up today for your special white privilege exemption card. Hashtag new Dem slogans. Awesome. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, hop on Twitter. Hashtag new Dem slogans. I think I'm going to be having a little bit of fun with this for a while. Let's see here. The Foo at Politibunny says, proud to tax you. Hashtag new Dem slogans. Oh, man. That's entirely too much. Now, next week, we're going to be going into the third episode of hashtag Third Party Problems. I've reached out to the Constitutional Party to try to secure an interview with that group. As of yet, have not heard back from anybody. So, listeners of the HollowNet, if you have a contact within the Constitutional Party and you believe that they would be a great addition to have onto the HollowNet, go ahead and shoot me a comment or a tweet. Let me know. I'll be happy to reach out to them and see if we can make that work. If I'm unable to secure an interview with somebody from the Constitutional Party, then I will go ahead and do a deep dive on their history myself myself. We'll review the history of the party, their recent run, and we'll get some good sound bites on there for you. But I always wanted to give each one of the third parties a chance to appear here on the HoloNet podcast and plead their case. And so far, I was honored that both the Federalist Party and the Libertarian Party took me up on that invitation. So I want to again extend that invitation out to the Constitutional Party and see if we can come up with something. So, other things in the news, and God, I'm at a loss. I don't care. O.J. Simpson has been paroled. This has dominated the news cycle all day long. And by God, I don't care. I just don't care. It was like the staple trial of my childhood. Sure. Did he do it? Didn't he do it? Yeah, I just don't get it anymore. But I am deeply looking forward to continuing to explore with you the third parties, to stand and hold the line against the night. And today I thought was a great opportunity to get back to the way I started the HoloNet podcast, which is as an earnest conversation with you. I mean, granted, you can hear me. I can't hear you directly, and I'd like to get kind of started to a point where we can interact during the show and live and make that happen. But I always want to bring you my thoughts and my analysis the way I would a friend or a family member or a coworker or somebody I just enjoy talking to about the crazy things that are going on around us all day, every day. About the differences of opinion that make us stronger and smarter and better than we were yesterday. It's okay to disagree. It's not only okay, it's necessary to have different opinions, different views, and different dreams. But as long as we hold love for our nation and brotherly and sisterly love for each other in our hearts, then together we can hold the line against the night. The new conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you. And as I said, conservatism is a wide banner. Libertarian, constitutionalist, Republican, fiscal conservative, Reagan Democrat, Trumpocrat, as I've heard many Trump-supporting Democrats called. If you have American values, if you love our nation, and if you love our Constitution and our founding principles, we can chill with a Happy Meal. Thank you for listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Today's a bit momentous. It's the 24th episode of the HoloNet podcast, and it's been wild. So again, thank you for joining us here. As always, good night. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.